Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and welcome back to Vicky 3. This is episode 23, and we are starting what I believe is going to be the last run through, at least on the channel. Certainly not for me personally. I'm going to continue playing. I love this game, but as for the time and effort, the editing, the process that goes into getting it added to the channel, as the size of the audience dwindles, this will be the last run through we make. So, who to do? Well, that's still up for debate. So let's have that debate briefly. Something in Australia is tempting, but as it's not united right now, it's all over the place on kind of what you would get. Dutch East Indies is certainly a prospect. It's a minor power, 21st in ranking. Would get us playing in Southeast Asia, which kind of continues along the direction we've been going. Possible. Around that, of course, you have Japan, unrecognized major power, already 15th, but unrecognized and isolationist. Huge population, ton of potential, but they don't have all of the resources they need, and they're not recognized. So getting recognized would obviously be a huge one, and that generally is going to involve trying to beat Russia in war, and that's no easy task. Great Qing is another, and maybe too easy. Yes, they have their limitations as an unrecognized major power, but they're massive, 365 million. You could easily turn them into something recognized and, one of the top two or three. That's probably a little bit too easy of a prospect. East India is already a major power, so that's out. My goal is to take something either not recognized or just minor and bring them up. Egypt, better option than Great Qing, for sure, as in more challenging, but still probably I would go with a little bit on the too easy side. Only just, though. I mean, they're not overwhelmingly tough. And unlike some others, there's a lot of desert there, so I don't know what kind of resources they would be dealing with. Egypt would come with some challenges, to say the least. I don't know if I want to get into Europe. If I were, the only two choices that make much sense are, like, say, Denmark, minor power only 22nd, but how do you grow and expand in Europe? Sweden, 17th, minor power, has Norway underneath them as a subject. Maybe? It is a paradox game, so Sweden could be secretly a little bit on the OP side. You would think they normally are when it comes to paradox games. But I don't really want to venture into Europe. I'd like to stay outside of Europe. We're done with Africa for now, so Egypt, okay, that's out. We just did Persia. So right now, realistically, I'm looking at just a couple of choices. Great Qing too strong. So we've got Japan. We've got the Dutch East Indies. I am very tempted when it comes to Spanish Philippines, as my wife is Filipino, and I've been there, and I'm going back this coming summer. But you're stuck with Spain as an overlord. Don't really want to get into that. So that brings us to the Americas. And realistically, I'm looking at two options here. One, Mexico. Canada is too weak. America's too strong. Mexico is very capable of doing something, but has to deal with the fact that you have a powerful U.S. nearby. So how do you grow? How do you expand? You're already at war with Texas right at the start of this thing, and they are 28th as a minor power. There's plenty of potential there. Or you go South America. While there's multiple options here, I think one stands out as the obvious go-to, and that's Brazil. Brazil is not overpowered, but has a ton of potential. They have a large population, but not huge. They have good GDP, but again, not huge. I mean, this is Persia, only stronger. But how would they eventually become a major power? They are seen as a minor power. Does that mean they're already recognized? I believe it does. So then that goes back to that temptation of, well, do we take a Japan and try to get recognized? Because they're unrecognized. Japan is an interesting prospect. Brazil, I think, is equally an interesting prospect. You could have all of South America under your control, I would assume, as Brazil before too long, and start pushing into the Americas and be strong enough at some point to take on a U.S. And maybe you have full control of the Americas, or maybe you start sweeping into Africa with all the resources that are available there and be involved in that gameplay. I could see Brazil doing a lot. Japan, as an isolationist, has a major hurdle to overcome before getting outside of that box. But then they have, well, let's compare some numbers, I suppose. Much larger population, twice the GDP, but a significantly larger population, meaning it's underused. Lots of arable land. Okay. Tough choice, because I am tempted by both. I think Japan has, that massive hurdle you've got to overcome. Brazil doesn't, but they're starting quite a bit weaker in certain respects, starting with less, but an easier path early on to expand. For one reason, and one reason alone, I'm going to go ahead and go with Japan, because I'm very intrigued by both of those prospects, whether it's Brazil or Japan. But I'm picking Japan because at the end of that last playthrough, we had gotten powerful, but we were unrecognized. Recognition was that target that we weren't strong enough to achieve. So that's that target that we want to achieve here. We want to gain recognition, and if Brazil's already seen as a minor power, it looks like recognition is not going to be an issue. So becoming a great power seems a pretty doable thing for Brazil, but it's just expansionist attitudes, which is largely what we did in the last playthrough. It's just you're already recognized, and you just have an easier task to become great than what we have here. Japan is pretty strong, pretty powerful, but they're unrecognized and they're isolationist. That's what I want to overcome. That's what I want to see if we can make happen. So, for that, we'll take on Japan. And here it is, the Japanese shogunate, already starting with a healthy balance. Amazingly, plenty of influence, despite the fact that we are isolationist. We also have a very good amount of authority at the start. We do not have a lot of bureaucracy to spare at the beginning, so it does look like that's one area we will want to address early on. In the production tech tree, we have 6 tech already unlocked. Military has 7 unlocked at the beginning, and in society there is 9. A pretty strong base already. They're certainly not behind. What we need to do, though, is we need to get out of isolationism as soon as possible. And there's definitely going to be a path to make that happen. And I think one of the first things is going to get some academia. We need some influencers. So we're going to start there. I don't know if this is just Japan, but I'm thinking this is part of the new update that went out, that your scale for legitimacy now shows kind of the tiers that are involved on what you get within each, as opposed to just if you hover over it, it shows you the impacts, but it doesn't show you kind of where the threshold for each tier is. The shogunate is in charge. They have 58% clout, so they are largely in charge right now. The samurai are also part of the government. The other groups, we have the peasants, the monks, and the intelligentsia. The intelligentsia is one that we are going to want to help get clout, I'm assuming, quite early on. Right now, the intelligentsia are giving us social criticism with lowered prestige, but we are getting bonuses for influence and military tech cost. Okay, so that's down. Nice. An overview of the current laws as they are, the isolationism is the primary one that needs to change as soon as possible. We've got to get out of isolationism and kind of into the world, but right now everybody loves it. The shogunate loves the isolationism, as do the peasants, and there is no support for changing it right now anyway. I think as we try to grow and develop the economy, there's a ton of potential here, especially with a large population. First thing that I notice is that A, we have a good balance right now. B, we have a very low construction threshold. Therefore, it seems like the place to begin is to use up that positive balance that we have right now to start constructing things much faster so that this economy can boom sooner rather than later. We don't want slow growth. Population also is quite high. Hokkaido, we need to watch out for. There are no peasants in Hokkaido. And based on the balance, I'm going to aim for 5 additional construction sectors here right from the beginning. Active construction does bring the balance down a bit. I'm curious about what our reserves are. That's why I cut it down by 1.5 million. Yeah, we'll be totally fine with 4 right off the bat, and then kind of using that to kickstart the growth rate of our economy, and then we'll look at what we have after that. But right now, radicals, almost nothing. Loyalists are decent. We have a massive population of 31 million. That's a lot of dependence. I mean, that's going to need to change, and it's going to be hard to feed and clothe a huge population like that outside of on their own. Therefore, I do expect that the standard of living is going to be one of those more difficult things to bring up. With a GDP of 15 million, though, there's a lot already happening within this country. But you look at that, I mean, comparison, it's not great efficiency for what we have. Balance-wise, the worst thing that we have is wood. No surprise there. That's always one of the things you inevitably get at the beginning of the game. That is, a great need, especially if you're going to do a lot of construction. There's a nice start. Gold has been discovered in Hokkaido. So gold fields. It's the first one of those I've experienced in, what are we on, our 4th playthrough now? Okay, we now have that negative balance, but we are settling in on 17 construction for the time being, and it's not a major negative balance. We'll get over that pretty quickly. Quick state view. Looks like we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 states right now in Japan. Do we also have Ryukyu? Yes. So we have 9 states. Basic needs, furniture, clothing. Of course, we're going to want to deal with that demand, and that's always going to be a minor issue as we try to grow and change what's going on. But let's try to address furniture and clothing at least a little bit up front. Not sure what our options are going to look like, but we're going to start by declaring interest in Oceania. I think that's going to be one of the easiest areas to get involved and add some territory. Well, looking across what the options are in Oceania, this is including Australia, New Zealand, which is all British. So, going through all these options, Great Britain would get involved in almost everything. There is one exception. There's one big exception, and it's the Hawaiian Islands. The U.S., of course, has not reached the full West Coast yet. And with that, Mexico is still in charge there, and Mexico doesn't care. So actually, the Hawaiian Islands could be a really good early grab for Japan. We need to make sure we make friends with Great Britain first, though. Well, that was not helpful. I was trying to make friends with Great Britain, and they have decided they were already belligerent towards us. We were trying to build relations. They have expelled our diplomat. So Great Britain is going to kind of block us out. So maybe we need to turn our interest away from Hawaii, as that's the only one we can do. And with them being belligerent, they would almost certainly want to join in. And maybe turn our attention to, like, say, Indonesia here early on, or maybe Southeast Asia, and see if we can, make some expansion happen to get stronger. Not that we don't have a big population. I mean, there's bigger fish to fry than being an expansionist Japan early on, but there's definitely some opportunities if we go that direction. So Indonesia is going to include all of this area, and we'll see what opportunities that's going to present for us. All right, and with the declaration, there's definitely some possibilities for us out here, but what are they and who would interfere? Because we're obviously not the only ones in the area. Great Britain, the Netherlands, Portugal, and Spain. Also Great Qing. And then locally, the Dutch East Indies. So that is a fair bit of opposition, which is why I was trying to start with Oceania, thinking that there was going to be less competition. Indochina has less players involved and maybe a better opportunity, but the problem is you still have Great Britain, who are very belligerent towards us, meaning they are looking for a fight. So if we get involved in any diplomatic plays, I have a feeling Great Britain will probably want to intervene. Therefore, it would not go well for us. East India Company and Great Qing are the other ones that we'd have to watch out for. I have to look elsewhere to do something, and I don't know where else we might be able to actually make a play, unless we were able to go all the way over and get involved in, like, say, Arabia or Ethiopia. That could be a better play for us, even though it would not be necessarily close to home. Not sure what happened, but suddenly Great Britain is no longer belligerent towards us. They are now cooperative, maybe because we were targeting a region that is almost entirely theirs, and therefore they were made them hostile towards us, possibly. At the moment, Eastern Africa is our target. It is a player in the area, but now that they're cooperative, things might go a little bit better for that. But who else is in this area? Maybe Zanzibar, Oman, you have Great Britain, you have France, Portugal, and Egypt. France, Portugal, and Egypt are the ones we need to check in on now. Egypt is cooperative. Let's go ahead and improve relations. Same with France. Portugal is the one we're going to have to watch out for. They are cautious towards us. Making an early play on colonization, as the upper part of Hokkaido is not colonized. So our first law that we're going to attempt to pass is not starting with much support, but the samurai endorse it. They are in our government. The peasants are not in the government. So we're going to go for a colonial resettlement and see if we can't make some progress on that one. With high legitimacy, it's going through quite easily, and it is going to involve debate to try to make it happen, but we can't establish a colony until we have that. We have an event. The event sounds like a dangerous business, but may be partially good, partially negative, but we do have the whaling industry as a journal entry. All we need is an admiral, so let's go ahead and get one. It doesn't hurt to have one. Efficiency of our whaling stations in Kanto has proved to have a dangerous counterpart, and death has become common to almost every voyage. There's a high price to pay, but the profit is equally high. Okay, safety, we would have increased popularity, and whaling employee mortality goes down by 2%. Or we have major throughput advantages for 5 years. Actually, either way, it's for 5 years. Let's take we have population. We can handle some mortality issues. Let's take the throughput bonus. Oops. Did I just sacrifice some humans for money? I'm so evil. Okay, here's our first negative. Ouch. Crooked connections. But inactive time goes down by 20%. Don't care about peasants, so that's actually a good thing. Yeah, I think it's been much quicker, but it did not help us on the success side of things. It's really hard to pass this without much support. First universities are being built right now. Still have a negative balance, but it's not a bad negative balance, though we are slowly, those gold reserves are falling away, so we want to get that to a positive balance here at some point. Before too long. Still addressing a lot of our major needs, but of course as you start getting into these type of needs, they're just going to continually increase. You're never going to meet the actual demand. Alright, so we've picked up 10% now on our success chance. It's progress. Getting further away from the debate, but we're not anywhere on advancing, and the stall chance is still pretty high. Okay, established a university has completed. We finished another mission. What do we get for this one? University throughput. Here we are. What do we have this time? Enactment success chance plus 20%. Yes. Okay, hey, look at that. We're up to 36% now. Let's take the throughput. Political strength of academics. Longer term impact on that one. Alright, we have to do something about this, like, say, get some authority and make some consumption taxes. Meanwhile, the other interested parties in that Eastern Africa region, I want to get those to 25 plus before we go aggressive after somebody. But we're getting awfully close to that, so we could see Japan taking control of parts of Africa here soon enough. And there it is. It has passed. This time we have colonial resettlement. So that's a good thing. Now we can establish some colonies. Do we not have Hokkaido? Oh, it's one territory. Okay. So, yes, let's go ahead and finish off the territory that we already have control of. Let's start with that one. So that will be fully in our control before long. I think we're going to want to go up here soon after, but it does look like Africa had at least one option for to colonize. Ooh, and it's happening quite quickly. It is not taking us long to colonize, maybe because we have a giant population. It's easy for the resettlement to happen. It's going to give us full control over that state, but we do have these islands as well to get. Looks like we could actually colonize more than one area at a time. Let's go ahead and start with Zakhlahin as well and get going on that one. Okay, we've also managed to get those friendly relations. And that now puts us with a target of Zanzibar, taking it away from Oman. It would come with some infamy, but we can easily kind of back out of that before long. Our first diplomatic play in this one. Alright, we'll see if anybody else wants to get involved in this. War reparations is their target, and they are fearful. No one is leaning towards Oman at the moment. We have line infantry now, and if necessary, we have stronger military that we could make if they put up a fight for it. And Oman backs down. There you go. So they have backed down, hitting the primary war goal. And look at that. We are in Africa. Okay, incorporation looks quite easy, so let's start right away on that process. There's obviously some turmoil, but we are now in Zanzibar. We do have that infamy though, so 21.3. We are reputable. Let's let that decay. It's going to decay at 5 per year, so it's going to take us about 4 years for people to not care anymore. And then, looking here regionally, this is easy expansion territory in terms of colonization, and we can kind of get right in and conquer those guys in a handful of years. We obviously want to stay friendly with Portugal. Let's see, we're also expanding rapidly in these couple of areas. I think additional construction would be helpful. So we're going to go ahead and utilize a couple more opportunities, like we're going to tax porcelain. Let's go ahead and tax like services. That's going to give us a pretty, there we go, Hokkaido, gold. More gold has been discovered. Now, can we turn this up just yet? What do we need? We need tools. We're going to need tools and iron before we can turn that up. But I think we're going to add more construction here, as we are not developing anywhere near as rapidly as we could or should be developing. So we got a whole bunch of logging camps queued up right now. All right, and we have finished colonizing Hokkaido. So that is fully under our control, and it's already an incorporated state. Unlike some of the others, we are well over our infrastructure limits on this one, so it doesn't have great access to the market, but Hokkaido has been colonized, and you can see Sakhalin is doing pretty dang well in terms of colonizing quite rapidly, and there's no other competition in there, so we might as well just let it continue on as right now, without any laws that we need to really bother with, the Buddhist monks have a decent amount of clout. They're also happy, and if we bring them into the government, we'll have righteous government. We'll get that 100% legitimacy, which is going to help us with loyalists, and you know that's an obvious good thing. We would add 50,000 loyalists per month. Yes, please. That also gives us an opportunity for something, because the Buddhist monks are interested in charity hospitals. So that would be a good start for a health system. It's going to come at a cost, and I don't mind the cost. 5,000, okay, fine, whatever. But that's only until it's passed, and we can get a plus 30%. That's already putting us at 50%, and we have a chance to advance. I think we're going to get this passed pretty quickly. It's also time to get started on some new industries. I'm still building up some kind of base economic stuff, and we're now up to 25 construction per week. First up is the food industry. Law advancement, charity hospitals has attracted new supporters, increasing enactment success by 15%. So that was a just positive one that time. But you can see we're now almost entirely, it's going to likely happen this time. It may happen the next time, but loyalists growing rapidly. We've got 2.6 million, only have a 500,000 radicals, and again that balance is going to right itself here very shortly. I'm guessing we're about to pass it, and we do. Charity hospitals are in. Mortality drops by 5% with that. Sakhalin is nearly colonized. It's getting pretty close to done. East Africa is mostly open, but if we can cut off the entry point, it's going to leave it largely to us. Therefore, the first place we want to colonize is Kenya. Now that one is definitely taking a bit longer. It's not happening as rapidly, and I'm guessing that is kind of the state of things there. By the way, our incorporation of Zanzibar, it's still going to take a while. 18 years to get that done. And Sakhalin has finished, so that is now done. We can turn that into a proper state. It's going to take 21 years, but we'll get on that one. So we've had a bit of a negative balance for a bit here because the healthcare system used up a lot of bureaucracy. We didn't have much to spare as we're trying to incorporate that state in state of Zanzibar, and also the other Sakhalin. Right, incorporating those states is costing us a lot of bureaucracy. The new credits thing is costing us a lot of bureaucracy. Anyway, we have a negative balance, but we are just using up a little bit of our credit right now. But unrealized taxes is 65,000. I mean, there's a lot of taxes out there, but we are making the bureaucracy better right now through working on adding some government administrations. Long term, we're going to need it as we continue to grow and expand anyway. So that's been helpful. Now I'm trying to also address the paper need to keep up with that government administration, but we're up to 32 of them, and it looks like I have 5 more queued up. That should easily get us to a positive balance there, and we should see that right the wrong, and then hopefully take care of our credit issue and pay that off quite soon. Our biggest need is and has been wood. I've finally constructed a few tooling workshops. So for the first time, I think we're going to start to use those tools. It's going to be 140 in total with that substitution, and that is going to change that market. Now it says that it's going to cost us a lot, but I don't think it is, because it's going to activate those tooling workshops, and we'll see that trade-off hopefully quite soon. Yeah, there you go. Tooling needs just dropped significantly. Tooling need, though, that was a lot more buy orders than what we had, but this number is going to come up pretty quickly as it's just getting activated. So tooling workshops, checking in on those. Actually, they're not even all built yet. So just the first one has been constructed, now fully employed. 2 more happening right now. So I bumped them down to the bottom of the list so they weren't constructed yet. But the funny thing is you get that trade-off. It uses wood to give you tools. For the wood, we use tools to give us more wood. But that should get us up to 30, 60, 90, which still won't be enough for even just that immediate need. Yeah, we're going to have to get a 4th one right off the bat. So we'll do a workshop. All happening in Kansai so far. Okay, and France has changed from a very, very happy to now belligerent attitude towards us. So there you go. There's the first of those to change their mind and decide they do not like green eggs and ham. By the way, we have nearly cut off the sea border here in Kenya as we work on expanding across this area. Kansai is one of our first areas that needs some attention. It's our largest or larger place that we have right now, along with Chubu. So, a couple options. We are okay on infrastructure, so we don't want road maintenance, though we are kind of approaching the edge of that. We have a lot of tax waste here, though, a lot of it, because there's just so many people, and we're not great at collecting those taxes. But service and manufacturing industries having throughput that is well worth in Chubu and Kansai putting those in, as they are going to give us a huge boost to the output of what's going on there. Look at that. Just like that, we are at 14,000 for our balance. So kind of centralizing the industrial work here and putting more rural things in other areas can be largely beneficial. Gold reserves are back to a positive balance, so we've taken care of the debt that we had. We still have those unrealized taxes, 58,000. We're starting preparations for the arms industry, which is going to allow us to turn our military up to a higher level, which just kind of gets you in a stronger position of people wanting to back down and not necessarily participate in wars. You can see we can actually do it kind of in stages. We don't have to necessarily change all of our barracks at once. We can switch to line infantry kind of one by one. Well, that is 15 years already into Japan. Now, we are still isolationist, but we have still managed to actually grow a fair bit. We have the rest of Ainu, or Hokkaido. We have Sakhalin fully in our grasp, and there's no more nearby uncolonized lands. But then we've also ventured into East Africa. We've already taken Zanzibar away from Oman, and then we are now colonizing Kenya, and you can see we're getting fairly close to this being the state that's going to get it next. You figure we'll get this one, and either it'll jump back over here, or maybe it'll kind of link across here. Whatever the direction, though, it should cut that off from others relatively soon. Right now, the only potential enemy we have is France, who is cautious towards us. They're not great, but the one nearby is Portugal. They like us just fine. We are gonna, once we expand here, though, we're gonna want to expand here to kind of cut them off as well, so that the inland push is ours into Africa, and that's nice. That's nice that we're able to colonize rapidly like that. In the meantime, our GDP has grown by 50% already in just 15 years. Standard of living is not doing well, though. There are some problems, especially in the new regions, but literacy rates have already gone up by 3%. Our population has grown by 4 million. A lot of that probably is Zanzibar, but we've managed to maintain just a small number, 400,000 radicals, despite a couple of law changes. So we're really off to a pretty good start. We've passed multiple laws and a fairly resistant government. But of course, the big thing, getting out of isolationism, is definitely not there yet, and it's going to be a while before we get that one. But tech is progressing at a decent pace. We only have 3 universities right now, though, so that's something that could absolutely be greatly expanded upon. And we also now have a positive balance, enough so to start putting away some gold reserves. In fact, we are back to where we started, which was 1.5 million, which means it's going to be time to turn construction up a notch yet again and use some of that balance up. Not all of it. I'd like to actually get a decent reserve going. I mean, this is a tolerable reserve, but as we've seen, it can go away pretty quickly. We have a lot of unrealized taxes, though, and that's a lot of wasted money that we very much like to address. rapidly expanding our tool production so that we can turn up construction and start turning industries up a notch would be a wise thing to do. But starting with, wood has been of a major need. Not a fan of how much authority we're already using up to be in the state that we're in right now, but it's okay. We'll be fine there ultimately, and we've already fixed the bureaucracy thing, and we have a number of, 2 states that we're trying to incorporate right now, and that's using up a good amount of bureaucracy that will eventually get freed up, especially the Zanzibar one. It's taking a lot of years to make happen. 12 years left further to go, but that turmoil, it's falling off. It's at 30% now. Once we get them incorporated, that's going to free up a lot. That is going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.